as we all dive for our mute button on the second screens. It's great. Thank you, Rosemary. I'm glad that we're hitting your timing perfectly. Hello to Martin and Gina. And, well, David, wait, but you're right here in the room. What are you doing waving to me, David? Hi there, David. Tell us who you are. Who is this person right below me?
I am former podcaster within atheist, secular, futurist spaces, and I've written a couple of books on logical fallacies and biases.
Alrighty. So I'm going counterclockwise today just because. So Reid, tell us about yourself. Who are you?
Hello. I'm Reid from the YouTube channel Cordial Curiosity, also president of Street Epistemology International. Glad to be back.
Cool. And then last but certainly not least, getting around to Mitchell. Now, Mitchell is our ringer guest today. That's somebody who we've arranged to come right on at the beginning of the show and be the first participant, the first caller to our show. Mitchell, tell us about yourself. Tell us, who you are, and then maybe why you're here.
Yeah. So my name is Mitchell Schrett. I just your average guy living it up in Virginia. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'm making the claim that the church is the true church, and I'm fairly confident in that. And I'm kind of a very logical person, which is very strange to be logical and also very religious at the same time, and something that I've been trying to reconcile. And I find this a great opportunity to help with that.
Okay. Is that anything like correct? I'm happy to retype that. The LDS Church is the true church. Okay.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Good. All right. So, David, Reid, are either of you chomping to grab this particular interview?
I've done a few of these before, but I'm glad to let David take it if he wants it.
I was going to feed off of what you've said in the week, Dali, which is we should have somebody who's experienced, who sets the tone.
Very good.
Start. And that's not me.
All
Just
right.
in case that needed clarifying.
All right. Well, throwing you guys right off the stage then. If you like, just hit me up in the private chat and I'll bring you back in anytime you like. So, are you okay if I examine your claim? I would like to ask about your reasons and the reasons behind your reasons and all the SE tricks and tribulations. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The LDS Church is the true church. Yes, Veronica, that is a chicken. I am here in my basement where my chickens live, and they are my pets. And he's being noisy in the moment. That's Miles. He's a sweetie old bird. True church. What does true church mean?
Sure. Yeah. It means that it is the only church that Jesus Christ has established on this earth, and is the head of.
Okay, the only one that he has since he came, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So as in, I guess we can say that it's the same one that has been since the beginning. It has disappeared from the earth at times and come back. In other words, it has been restored to the earth. And it has been restored most recently by the prophet Joseph Smith.
Okay, so in one sense, this true church is an extension of the church that was established in the New Testament by Peter and then maybe Paul.
Yeah. And it's also the same church
alone.
that, yeah, absolutely. Same church that Adam and Eve were a part of, in the sense of the idea of what a church is. That I'm
okay.
would struggle Adam to kind of to find that exactly, but
yeah. So this sounds to me like Jesus established a church on earth before he came the first time.
Yes, before he came the first time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
The same church that is in the Old Testament. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm assuming that the early church in the 1st, 2nd century, that sort of thing, was the true church, correct? Or at some point it deviated and stopped being the true church, and then it was reestablished under Joseph Smith?
Correct. Yeah. So Jesus Christ kind of helped establish that church at the beginning with the 12
Mhm.
apostles.
Okay.
He gave them authority for that
Yes,
church.
Thomas, because we all know about him.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's
Yeah.
just
And the apostles were also given authority to pass that down. We believe that that authority was eventually taken away from the earth through the death of the apostles and the leaders of that church until it became extinct.
So, all right, apostles. That's an interesting question for me for definition. If I look in the Gospels, apostles are something like the actual disciples, the 12, maybe. Doesn't have to be exactly 12. It might have been some Cumco. Doesn't matter. And then later, when we're thinking in like Acts and the things like that, maybe apostles became a wider thing, and maybe were people that were important in the church and were teaching the gospel, but maybe had not met Jesus in person.
Yeah, correct. So apostles are I would say a position that can be held in the church. It can be passed down. So that authority, it's a level of authority, I guess. Another way of describing it, and not everyone who holds, or not every member and leader is an apostle, and with like a capital A. There are lowercase a apostles.
Okay.
I think missionaries would be described that way, a lowercase a apostle.
All right.
But the uppercase A's are the one with authority, and those were eventually that authority became extinct in that 1st, 2nd century church that we were talking about.
Sometime in the 1st or 2nd century, it became extinct when. Do you have an opinion as to a particular milestone that you would point to and say, when that person died, or when that, is there a milestone that I can point to?
I do not have that.
Okay.
That's not something
It's
that.
a vague notion somewhere in the 1st or 2nd century.
Mhm.
Cool. All right. So does that mean that there wasn't a true church on earth for 1700 years or whatever the number turns out to be?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In other words, we call that an apostasy. So I'm sure there's some, from what I remember, similarity between apostles and apostasy, the absence of that from the earth. And there have been multiple.
Like the same idea, almost like the flip side of a coin.
Sure.
I think many would call me an apostate because I'm an ex. I was a theist for about 40 years, and now I'm older. Okay. Let's see. Oh, I'm just going to put this one. It's really clear. We have an LDS member on here, and they wouldn't expect a Mormon to voluntarily appear on the show to SE this. He approached us, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mitchell.
I can talk about that real quick.
Sure.
I'm a very logical person, and I love SE. I love exploring my claims and exploring myself, and really getting to the reasons for my reasons and all that. And so this is just a wonderful opportunity for me right now too.
Cool. Would you say that the LDS Church specifically started with Joseph Smith finding or translating, or maybe there was an event in there?
Yeah.
That started the church. Maybe it was the publication of the Book of Mormon. What's the milestone that brought the true church back into existence on Earth?
Yeah. So the church was officially established 1839, I believe. They had It was a the first congregation. There was a certain number of people who had authority in attendance that needed to be there, and they established a church. And this was after the translation of the Book of Mormon. It was it didn't start. I guess the restoration started before that, where God started to establish his church, but it didn't get established until that date in 1839.
Okay. Have you always believed that Joseph Smith was... No, sorry, it's not whether Joseph Smith was. Have you always believed that the LDS Church was the true church? Or did you come to believe that sometime? Past, like, early childhood or something?
Yeah. I always believed it.
Always believed it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's always a hard question because I was told it for quite a while, and then I believed it later.
I think I think the first best epistemology that almost all of us have is believe our parents.
Yeah.
And then eventually we come to a Santa Claus moment and find out that our parents are only mostly right about most things. They're still mostly right. Yeah.
And you know what? I think that same epistemology holds true with God for me. I think my epistemology changed.
Believe God?
Yeah, that changed from parent, like mortal earthly parent, to eternal heavenly parent.
Okay. So then I guess I'm going to ask, how can you tell if God is the one talking?
Yeah, for sure.
In any given word or message or sentence or
yeah,
graph or whatever is the unit of meme.
Because he is. So how do I differentiate, I guess? Or yeah, so I know that it's him talking because I know myself very well. I know who I am, what I think, what my tendencies are. And it's normally something going against that. Okay. That is God. If like in a very general sense.
So if it fits what you expect, that's pretty easy to say it's God. If it fits your moral intuitions, that's easy to say it's God. If it goes against your moral intuitions, you would suspect and maybe think it wasn't.
Not quite.
I don't know if moral intuition is the right term here.
Yeah. Because my moral intuitions, sometimes what I think is morally correct, Yeah, because this is a great question. This really helps a lot. Okay. My moral intuition is kind of arbitrary compared to like a higher morality, right? That I would attribute to God. Sometimes I hear God even when it's morally correct. It'll just be more of a direction, like I'm heading the right way, but alter course by 2 degrees. And then there's also the other side, what you said, against my intrinsic moral thinking. Sometimes he's right along there telling me no. And then sometimes even against that moral internal thought, God is speaking to me to go against that. There's all situations, yeah. So it can't be like defined in one of them.
Okay. Reid wants to know, what's your confidence in the initial claim that the LDS is the true
90%.
Church? 90%. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some potential room for doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine that I had a different Latter-day Saint,
Yeah.
and they said they had a different means
Yep.
for testing whether a message that they got from God was correct. Are there other means that would be just as valid that you would agree with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because God knows us individually, he knows how each of us interpret things, how we understand things, and how we will act on things. And through that, he works, and I think one of the biggest things for me is that kind of helps me understand things is God's purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scripture that states it
Mm-hmm.
explicitly.
What God's purpose is?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Sure. So it's Pearl of Great Price,
Okay.
Moses,
Pearl of Great Price, and all right.
Moses is the book.
All right. Hold on. Let me share this so that we can be looking at it. And the book Moses. Okay.
Chapter 1,
Uh-huh.
verse 39.
39. For behold, this is my work and my glory, to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man.
Yeah. And to get back to what we were talking about with the other person experiencing things differently,
Mm-hmm.
And God working differently for each of us individually,
Mm-hmm.
He wants us to become like him, to have that immortality and eternal life, to achieve that. We all are trying to improve and become more like him in different ways, in different
Mhm.
aspects in our life. And right now I'm trying to do it through logic and reasoning.
Okay.
He put that here, like that's part of this world that we live in. He wants us to see that and to understand it and to feel it and to come to terms with it. And he also wants us to understand other ways of understanding through feelings, through emotions that may
Mhm.
not be correspondent with logic and reasoning.
Okay. That's actually the thing that I had in mind. I'm remembering Matthew telling me about near the end of the Book of Mormon about the testing to see if this thing is true or
Yeah.
asking if
Yep.
it's not true, getting quiet with yourself, praying. There's probably some steps I'm missing, and feeling a burning in the bosom, or I don't know if that's a colloquial term, but an internal feeling
Yeah.
is confirmational.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely think that when it comes to the Book of Mormon specifically and knowing if it's true, and this would be kind of a separate claim, I guess, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I do think that would be the way to go about it. And if when we say true, that's in the feeling way, right? In that way that you described.
Mhm.
And it's very like religious based. It's not based in that logical, reasonable reality truth.
Okay.
It's a more deep kind of foundational truth than that.
Okay. I'm going to go to my bench and see if they have questions.
Yeah, and that can be a
Surprise,
separate
guys. Do you have any questions at this stage? Reid or David?
Maybe I'm wondering, is this the claim to talk about? Should it be reframed to, does the God of the Book of Mormon exist?
Sure.
To just talk about that? Like, making a claim about a church being the true church, does that imply that the God of the true church exists?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
does?
I think that makes more sense, and that's more of the claim that I want to explore. I think. Yes, that's a good point.
Maybe just
Okay, I'll change it.
like the most
Keep
broad
going.
claim is the God of Abraham exists, or the Abrahamic God exists. Or we can just say a God exists and define a God however you want.
I think for me, the LDS God makes the most sense because people view the character of God in different ways, and different religions view it in different ways. And I think specifically the LDS one.
Okay, so outsider test.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to take a religion. I want to just check. Tell me a religion that you think is incorrect.
Okay,
That
yeah, we can do
God.
any. We can do any. So let's say the Jewish religion.
Okay, so a Jew comes to me and says, Yahweh exists.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather told me, and my grandfather told him, and my grandfather told him. Yahweh is the thing, and I have lots of logical reasons to believe so. And I think your Joseph Smith guy is not the guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do I pick between the two of you? How do I pick?
So I have two thoughts on this. The first is, I think the best way to do it via evidence. And the second thought kind of counters it a little bit. And I'll tell you why. We'll get to that.
My friend Doug says Mormons have the best evidence of any of the religions.
Yeah. So I think you could track how the faith of people, you could track their decisions and their thoughts and their I guess specifically their promptings, like those big decision moments in their lives, and when they consider that they have had a prompting and they acted on that prompting. And you could track this is all based on the idea of by their fruits you shall know them. And see who, and I guess this goes back to that Moses 1:39 purpose of God claim, that if God is trying to get us to become more like him, if his church is not becoming more like him, then he's failing and he doesn't exist. So we should track if people are becoming more like him in that church. And okay. I think that I believe wholeheartedly that the LDS church, the members of that church, are becoming more like them as they continue to practice that.
Cool. What's the second best church? What is the church that is not the LDS?
Sure.
That is the closest runner-up, and what are we measuring that puts them in that second place?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think if there is even a way to measure a second place church, because something that differentiates the LDS church, since I believe the LDS church is true, we believe that we have the gift of the Holy Ghost given to us when we are baptized. Afterwards, after we're baptized, we receive the Holy Ghost, who gives us
I grew up
that
in
direction.
a Baptist similar Protestant, and they believed the same thing.
Yeah. If they're becoming more, so you check the other. Okay, so I'm trying to think of from the outside, right? Right now.
Yeah, I'm the outside of all the churches. So
yeah, because I was starting to talk from the inside, and that's not how I should be doing this. So from the outside, you could track these other churches and see how close they're getting, how close they're getting to that character of their God. or to that purpose of that God,
Okay, so almost like an internal critique, I could
Yeah.
say that Islam is the closest to the wishes of Allah, which are distinct from the wishes of Yahweh of the Jews. And so
Sure.
each of them would see their religion as qualifying the best.
Sure. And like I'm thinking about this now that like I'm glad you asked the second best. That makes sense.
That's a question.
Because I can think of a scenario where someone creates a religion around themselves.
Sure.
And so they become their religion is to become like themselves, and they succeed at that wholeheartedly, and thus thus they're the true one, right? But I think yeah, hold on. I bring a pen and paper for this so I can write down things I can think about more.
While you're doing that,
go ahead.
Go ahead. If you're ready, go.
No, I'm not ready.
Okay, I'll answer a few questions from the side. Is Dali going with Haidt's definition, or Jonathan Haidt, I think is his name, definition of moral intuitions? I wasn't specifically going after his particular categories. I really respect Haidt's perspective on the thing, and I was speaking of moral intuitions in a much broader sense, just in the sense of like, how do people choose their philosophy questions? Mustache asked, how can you tell it's God and just you? I think you did answer that one. That's great. Can the LDS be a true church and still not from a God? I'm going to guess the answer is no, because the LDS truly asserts that God exists, so they couldn't be true while God not exist. Anything more to say on that one?
No, that sums it up, I think.
And why does Mustache Mac feel deja vu? Because street epistemology is kind of it's not quite a script, it's almost a flow chart, but it has the same kinds of tests, it has the same kinds of goals over and over. So from the perspective of the interviewer, we are in a rut. It's a good rut.
I have a question.
Yes.
What I think I'm hearing Mitchell say is part of evaluating whether or not a religion is true and therefore their God actually exists is to see if the people in that religion, if they become closer to the purpose of God. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah. So that was my kind of most recent thinking. Yeah.
That's like a metric to potentially measure.
Yeah.
The closer,
and that's just something I'm trying to find.
Okay. How about this question? Could someone in a religion align as close as possible to their God-given purpose and that God not exist?
Okay, yeah. So could someone? Yeah. So God doesn't exist, but there exists a person who aligns very close to that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Carry on.
I think that they can. Yeah.
You were 90% on the first claim, which was that the LDS was the true church. What would be your confidence on the God exists claim? Would that be higher, lower, the same?
It would be the same. I think that the principles and kind of logic that I find in the LDS Church to be the most sound for a God existing, and obviously the reason why it's at 90%
Mm-hmm.
is because I don't think that God would. One, I don't think it's possible for anyone to be really 100% without evidence, and that evidence is obviously not willingly shared by God, currently with us. He has shared it, like he has obviously shown himself to select people in from what I believe. But if he wanted to have us to have the evidence, he would just show himself to us.
Okay.
And that just is perfectly clear. So there's obviously a reason that he hasn't. And if he's not going to show himself, why would he allow for evidence in this world to exist?
Okay. I invite any further questions from you guys or from the audience on this one. I'm gonna, if you have a question, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly clarify because we, as I said in the week as well, I was trying to think of like new pathways with street epistemology, and I'm atop the peak of Mount Stupid, as it were, on the Dunning-Kruger. So I just need to test some ideas. Instead of confidence level,
I'll put you in the upper left.
Yeah, sure. Instead of confidence level, what do you think is your knowledge level?
Oh.
Can we put that on a scale from 1 to 10 and you define what 1 and 10 is?
Yeah,
sure.
I'm going to say 0.
Oh, wow.
Your knowledge level is 0?
The reason, yeah. So the reason I say that is because God is infinite. And in comparison to infinity and that inner workings.
So I hear that your knowledge is infinitesimal and rounds to 0.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I interpreted that differently. Knowledge of what? Not knowledge of God, but knowledge of all of the potential justifications for believing in this God?
Yeah.
The arguments for and against it.
Yes. So, yeah. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I still think it is 0 because of and that's such an interesting question in respect to something dealing with infinity. I would say the same thing about math. I'm a math major, and I've experienced plenty of things with that. I've learned a lot. I know a lot more than most, but I would still put it at the same 0 as I know about this. So knowledge-wise.
Okay, thank you. So I want to make you stretch.
Yeah.
I want you to come up with a hypothetical for me. I'm actually going to ask 2 of them. And this is something that you don't know today, not something you're remembering.
Yeah.
Something you could learn tomorrow that would move your confidence. And then the 2 questions are up and down. You can choose them in whichever order. Give me a hypothetical that would move your confidence.
That would move my confidence up and down. That I would learn today.
Yeah, up or down, and sometimes people answer the same for both because it's like, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, this would be easy if now that I think about it. With respect to this claim, if I were to find out that members of the church were to not be improving and becoming more like that character that they are aspiring to be.
Oh, okay. So if you were to have some sort of a poll of membership and you found that they were moving away from being Christ-like, or
yeah,
or whatever the standard
and
is.
yeah, that would absolutely.
And that would lower your confidence.
Yeah.
Okay. If you found the same thing where they were being distinctly more Christ-like within your lifetime, would that raise your confidence?
No.
No. Okay. Give me a different one then.
Yeah.
You're back on the spot.
Yeah. I think actually to increase my confidence, I would have to more than know something, do something. And that would be to ignore it would be to kind of like give up more of myself, if that makes sense. I'd have to.
If you gave up more of yourself, you would become more confident?
I think so.
I think I don't understand.
Yeah. If I let me give an example, I guess. Yeah. So there are times in my life when I know that I should put God first in things, in things in my life. And I actively don't. So like I can't think of like a specific example right now. But like decisions where I either do what I know is right or do what I want to do, if that makes sense. And I think if I gave up more of that, yeah.
I have my coffee here.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you pass by Starbucks,
I don't know if coffee is something that's important to you personally or not.
No, I see. That's exactly. That's something that I have never tried. So, but like that, sure. And it's more than I think. Yeah, it's hard to describe. It's more than just giving up something. It's giving up the want for that something. Does that make sense? So there are still things in my life that.
Yeah, I have. Sorry, I'm sometimes too literal and poetry goes over my head. And I'm not getting how you're giving up the want to do a thing would increase your confidence that God exists. I don't see the connection.
Yeah, sure. So that want for this is where I was getting, that want for evidence. That's
if you could give up the want for evidence.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See?
All right.
There you go.
So and your faith would grow. Sure, absolutely. Question from the audience: if we could somehow provide sufficient evidence that a different God exists, would that lower your confidence on the God you believe in? No. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess sufficient evidence.
Allah comes down, sits on the Kaaba in Mecca, and says, "Hey, y'all," and performs miracles. That wouldn't lower your confidence?
Yeah. Yeah, because like I'm like trying to think of what sufficient evidence is, I guess. Could you describe sufficient evidence? I guess that would help.
Sufficient evidence for me. I'm not saying this is the only thing. I'm saying this is a very incomplete list. Would be golden plates. Golden plates that I could learn a language from, and how they translated into the Book of Mormon. So, golden plates in a language that can be translated reliably into the Book of Mormon. those would be pretty good for me.
Sure.
Let's see. Obviously, direct communication from God would count so highly with me. Miracles, demonstrations. Obviously, the First Kings 18 thing that Doug likes, where light my napkin, that's water-soaked napkin. That's kind of an extreme example of here, performative miracles. Let's see, what else?
Oh, you know what?
Genuine prophecy.
I think that information that it's so funny how this just happened. Something I didn't know that you asked before that would increase my confidence.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that you just gave me that
good.
increased my confidence. Yeah. Yeah.
Which one was that?
So defining sufficient evidence. Yeah. So as you define sufficient evidence, and I thought about the question, would you lower your confidence if sufficient evidence of another religion existed?
Mm-hmm.
No. The answer is no. Now that I know what sufficient evidence is. And this is because I think that, and you know what? Bring up that Venn diagram.
Okay.
I think this is because evidence is very logic, reasoning, understanding, and we'll call that yellow.
Okay.
And
logic, reasoning, yellow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And emotions, feeling, intuition, I guess, somewhat. I don't know if maybe that'd be there, but
emotions and intuition is the blue.
Yeah, feelings. Okay. Yeah, sure. Is the blue. And part of the purpose of God is to help us get in the green of things. And this applies, I think you can put any two, not any two, but because I haven't thought about it that much for everything, but there's a lot of things that you could put in the yellow and blue that seem contradictory, that seem not together, but can be reconciled in some way and end up in that green. And so I think that's where I am in my belief of this claim. So sufficient evidence would not sway me because that's a blue question. And that's in the blue. And I'm not in the blue.
But it's in the blue. I've got them backwards, but that's fine.
Yeah. And if you were to tell me, what if you had a strong feeling about a different religion?
Yeah. That
wouldn't put me in that other religion either, because that's a yellow question. That's in the yellow.
Okay.
So it's this reconciliation of the two.
So something that is strictly in the yellow or the blue and not green would not sway you. It has to have elements of both.
Yeah, it has to be. Okay. It has to be in the green, and I think that the LDS Church for me satisfies that.
Okay. Aliens land and say, "Hey, we have our own Joseph Smith prophet." It's not Joseph Smith because it's Zaphod People Rocks, but whatever. And that they are members of a church that is effectively the same as LDS. Would that improve your confidence that the LDS was the true church?
As long as they present the answer of the universe and everything is 42, then.
Okay, good. Is the 42 in the green or the yellow or the blue? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to think about that.
Martin asks, is not wanting evidence moving to the blue part?
Moving to the blue part. And not wanting evidence moving to the blue part.
And if you were to understand it better by substituting a different color, you can answer that question too.
It's not wanting evidence moving to the blue part. It's not wanting to moving to the yellow part, green part. I think not wanting evidence is moving from the blue part to the green part.
Okay.
But understanding evidence and learning from and growing from evidence,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
but not needing it.
Veronica seems to be entirely in the yellow space, asking, why would you ever want to veer away from true logic at all?
Yeah, I think veering away from logic. There's I think a lot of things that make logical sense that that probably aren't right. Obviously, I can't point to them because right now they seem to make logical sense.
Sure.
And I guess
I'm
some
sure with
people bring
deduction,
up
I can
like,
prove black is white.
yeah,
In philosophy, yes.
I think people bring up sometimes like, oh well, they used to believe the Earth was flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now we know it's not. And then you could say, well, how do we know that it's not? Maybe it's flat in the fourth dimension.
Sure.
I don't know.
Cosmologists can tell me what that means. I don't know.
Yeah.
Life Finds a Way says, I just got here, and he just wants a refresher on what the they.
Yeah,
I don't
blue
know.
is faith, yellow is reason. That sounds
Blue
like
is faith, yellow is reason, and
another good
green
description.
is when you put the two of them together in some synergistic good thing.
Yeah, and can another great example that I found just within the religion itself, kind of seeming contradictory, is obedience and charity.
Okay.
So, I had a missionary companion who was very charitable but not very obedient, and I was very obedient and not very charitable.
Okay.
Because I would like rules, logic. We got to follow this.
Sure.
If we follow these rules, these things will happen. This and that, And I realized that, well, but sometimes he was right when we weren't following the rules exactly. It was the better thing to do, and that was another one of those times where I had to reconcile that,
Yeah.
And I found that green space of what God was trying to show me of that obedience and charity kind of working together in some kind of paradoxical way, right? But still existing. So the same thing with reason and faith, I think paradoxically can exist together.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could someone use this faith and reason combination model like as a reason to believe in a God that's not true?
I'm trying to think if they could. So I don't have an answer for that right now, but I could definitely think about that. And my immediate thought is that, like in my personal belief, I would say no, just because that's I've seen it used in my life, and kind of thinking about how I see other religions and other things, right? That I can't see it working out that way. And I think a lot of it has to do with that evidence side that they don't have enough of.
So when we're adjudicating between these claims of gods, you're leaning towards using the evidence to make that adjudication?
Sorry, one more time. It cut out the first part.
So if different people from different religions can potentially use this as a reason to believe in their God, and we have some kind of conflict, we're going to lean on the evidence and reason circle more to clear that conflict up, and not the other side.
So when talking about like other people, I think it's up to them, like I guess from what I understand, just correct me if I'm wrong. still fairly new to SE. We're exploring the claim for myself, or am I trying to like help other people? Like, because I can't.
These are questions for you
yeah.
as an individual, and if you want to represent a group, that's okay. You can speak for what you think the group thinks. That's okay too.
Yeah. For any sincere, reasonable person who wants to know what's true.
Yeah, sure. So I think you could absolutely use it as much as you want. You know, like go ahead and use it for that. I think on an individual basis, if you actually do use it, you can figure it out on your own, you know, and you can go through the religions yourself, and I think if you like have that kind of sincerity in doing it for each one, that you can absolutely figure it out on your own. And I think like I think what you said is, can people have different conclusions? Yeah, of course. I absolutely think they can come to different conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And false conclusions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sushi is one of the leaders of our Discord practices that are somewhat like this show that we have on Discord every Saturday. And Sushi is inviting you to also come practice with them on Saturday so they can talk to you about this. And there's an overlapping but different audience.
Yeah. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully I'll have more time to think about this stuff.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any last words? I'd love to give you, Mitchell, the last word if you want it. And any other questions from the panelists? Or
I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope this is one of many conversations we'll have. This is good.
I'm very happy to continue the conversation, but I don't know how much time you've got.
Yeah, we're almost halfway through the show, and we'd love to talk with other people.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to do this
Either.
some other time too, if you'd like.
Yes, very much. And if you'd like a specific show that's just you as the only caller, just hit me up and I'll put you on my channel. We'll just make it happen.
If afterwards, if you guys could type some of the questions you've asked me, just so I have on record, because there was some things that I feel like I still need to think about more.
Oh, gosh, I'll have to go back through. I don't even remember.
True, this is recorded. I can't just go back.
It is recorded, yeah. And you can play it at 2x and pause it and all those things.
Oh yeah.
I unfortunately have the memory of a chronic pot smoker, so it's one of those things.
I guess the final thing that I want to bring up, and hopefully I can be succinct about it. I want to make sure that I say it right too.
Mm-hmm. We love aporia. This is one of the strange areas where we actually love dead air.
I think it makes logical sense that there is nothing that I can say to convince someone else. Because of how personal the relationship God has with each of us,
mm-hmm.
He wants us to find Him and to experience it and to have all of these things ourselves, mm-hmm. and not vicariously through other people. So it shouldn't be possible for us to be able to convince someone else on logic, reasoning alone.
Is it possible if you use more than logic and reasoning?
Not if I use it. Like I can't use feelings on someone else, if that makes sense. How would I use that on them? They have to
check with Chase Alvior. He will tell you about using feelings on people.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds great. I'm curious about that then.
Last show or a prior recent show. He's a vegan activist and leans heavily into Emotional persuasion.
Gotcha. Emotional persuasion.
Yes.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, okay. I can kind of see that, but I
But probably
think
not to the level of emotion you're thinking of potentially.
yeah,
Maybe. I don't know.
Category, not similar necessarily.
yeah.
Mhm.
And just so when I was on my mission, remember, I'm just a very logical person.
Right.
I gave everyone all the reasons that they should join the church, all the like thinking like, yeah, but this, and this, and like, yeah, the Bible says that, but like that doesn't like, and just bashing and trying to make sense of
So
things.
you got a lot of pushback.
Yeah, sometimes there was pushback.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they would hear me and they would they would understand and they would even like agree with me a lot of like, and then nothing would happen. It
Mhm.
was only when I also invited them to on their own like include feelings, include along with reason
Mhm.
that that basically that green area, right?
Mhm.
That they did it. And so like no matter what I did logically, it
Mhm.
it just didn't,
If you were young again, 17, knowing what you know now, would you do your mission again?
Yeah.
I assume you did a 2-year mission like is normal, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Was
Yeah,
that worth it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But you'd believe that it's not possible for you to persuade people by those means.
Yeah.
What was it for?
Yeah. I think we give them that opportunity. So that is what missionaries do. They don't themselves persuade people. They give other people the opportunity to explore for themselves.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's no way, nothing I could do could change that person.
I
no matter who
very,
they are,
very rarely see people persuaded by any conversations I have during the conversation. Oftentimes they will come to me afterwards, and in the few percent where I actually notice a change, it's something that happened between conversations in their own head.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we check up with people on our mission. Like we even will give them time and come back later. And it's never like, it's never just reasoning that they give when we tell them, or when they tell us that they're ready to
Mhm.
keep moving forward. It might have been a reason alongside with something that they felt from either like what we said or what they did on their own. It was always a combination.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell. You've been a great ringer guest. Appreciate you much.
Thank you.
Yeah, great chat. Nice.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
We are available to. Oh no, sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button. The button is, if you would like to come into the show and replace him up in the corner. He's over there. And be our caller that we can gang up on and be mean to. Just hit the link that we've posted in the message. Thank you for filling in the poll. Specifically, notice that I'm asking if your confidence has shifted. I'm not asking what your position was or has become or in which direction, just whether there's a shift of confidence. So far, I see that one person was moved more than 10%. That's pretty cool. One person was moved between 1% and 5%, and the rest were at 0%. And that goes with your claim that people aren't convinced by logic or emotions, at least in real time.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
I will let you go, Mitchell. Thank you. See you later.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mitchell. All right. That was fun. Mitchell was a great ringer. Thank you, Mitchell.
That was interesting. There's very little I actually know about the LDS. So I
Okay.
realize I mean, I was definitely not the right person to start that. I think you did a great job, Dali, but
Thank you.
I think it's quite all right. I think you always, just from a third person perspective, you start thinking about these things a lot more from your own perspective, because I'm about to go into something, I hope, where I can just throw some ideas out there, and I realize I actually know very little. And I found that answer fascinating, that he thought he was on zero.
Yeah, and I think he just meant infinitesimal compared to the overall. Frankly, I think it was a mathematician's dodge.
Yeah.
He didn't want to give himself credit for his actual knowledge. And so he just declared it as infinitesimal because the amount of knowledge that was there. It's like I've seen this diagram of how much can you know, and it's just this little dot in the overall. So how could you know God couldn't be on the other side of things? Sure, I agree. We only know just a dot of everything that can be known.
It was a specific question about how much he knew about the entire church, as opposed to all of everything. Sorry, Reid.
Yeah, maybe reframing the question like, of the knowledge currently discovered by humans about this claim, how much do you know of that from 0 to 10?
So we could define 10 as the most knowledge that a human has about the LDS Church. Yeah. Where would you put yourself?
Just humanity in general.
Oh, that's an even bigger one. That's okay. It's a big one. Kurglow asks, if there's a non-falsifiable claim that makes a person more ethical, is it worth holding on to it? Yeah. Why not? It makes you more ethical?
Depends on the other externalities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as a default, I call that the very definition of a noble truth. Like, for example, I have a non-falsifiable claim that I should be kind to all humans except for those that opt out. And that is probably too gross a generalization, but it causes me to be ethical. Oh.
That would be a kind of fragile moral character, though.
Yes.
You could come across something that you weren't expecting, be dissuaded from that view, and now you feel like you can do things because you've lost a way to be ethical, potentially.
Yeah. Well, I used to be differently ethical when I was a theist. I didn't have that same rule. I had somewhat a different rule. In some cases I was more ethical, and maybe in other cases I wasn't, because I probably wasn't as nice to Muslims. Right. Things like that. Yes. David says, call in. We don't bite unless you ask real nice. We're so consent oriented. It's all about that consent thing. I recently had a conversation with somebody that was suggesting that in street epistemology practice, we make a point of saying you must get consent. You must ask for consent. You must have consent. You must communicate that this is an opt-in thing and that they can opt out without recrimination at any time and that kind of thing. And they said, "Nah, it feels creepy. I think you're messing up by doing that." I'll live with it.
We must force this upon people.
Yeah.
You can go overboard.
Yeah, totally. You can spend all your time wringing your hands about the thing, and they're like, "Come on, man, I'm still here talking to you. I know where to just stop." Yeah. Okay, let's see. Doorknob Hud said, it could make you more ethical, but yet you unwittingly devise your own demise, and your family that depends on you suffers net loss. Okay, yeah. Well, then maybe it's not that ethical a belief. Don't know. I'm not saying that all beliefs that make you more ethical are a good belief. Permission has less sexual connotations. Sorry, consent has sexual connotations? Maybe that's why I'm messing up. People think I'm asking them to have sex when I'm asking for social intercourse. Oh, there's another word. Okay. I go into the park and I ask people to have public social intercourse. Let's say we can't falsify God, but people devote to God and build this foundation that helps homeless every day Sunday with free food being a good person. Do you still have a problem with that? I love charity work. There's a temple that I used to live near, and every Sunday they had free food for the everybody, which of course got the local police completely annoyed with them and up in their business about health department things because they were attracting homeless people. No good deed goes unpunished. I do not have a problem with them giving away free food and even preaching when they do it. That's fine with me. Any other thoughts on that? I'm just talking.
Mm-mm.
So call in, give us a claim, be a victim. No, be a claimant. Or if you want to hit us up, you can ask us to give you a claim and you can practice your SE. Do I give free food? Not usually. I don't make a habit of it. I do give free things away sometimes if I think somebody needs it.
On a side note,
thumbs up. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
My job all month has been working in summer camps with kids that get free school meals, and they've obviously for the summer they're not in school, so we provide free camp for them, which we do give them free meals. So the answer would be yes, I do.
Good.
Children, so there's more points as well.
Even better to children, definitely. Funny enough, what Doorknob said could apply to atheists. That was unintentional, like clergy project type folks that have become more ethical, but their family suffers from the church also. Yeah, when people go through significant changes of worldview, there are big ripple effects for themselves and their family. I personally kind of hope that a whole lot of people that are very, very invested in their worldview don't shift. Maybe I can talk them into voting my way on some issues, but without having them have to break their whole life over it. Is charity an action of humans or something other? I don't know anything that is not human that gives charity. Although, wait, no, I've noticed that animals are sometimes altruistic. Does that qualify? If a vampire bat gives blood to their friend, is that charity? If so, then yeah, animals can do it. Yes, make that claim. Call in.
It can be any claim, any at all.
Mm-hmm. Ed is asking the free will question or thought. So anybody want to bring forth on free will? I get this so often, it almost comes off practiced.
Go for it.
I think I have trivial free will. I think I am the one choosing chocolate over vanilla if I do. But I don't think that neuroscientists telling me that they can tell 15 seconds before that I'm going to pick chocolate means that I'm not the one choosing. I think I am the one choosing. I also don't think that I can choose in any way independent of priors or externals. So this profound free will that seems to be important to people, I don't think I have that. I think I am free will enough that if I do a crime, you should punish me.
I agree with that.
It almost seems like I was skating out of the question. I'm sort of like defining my way out of having to have the argument.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, I can't remember who said it, but the line that says, oh no, of course it was Hitchens. Yeah, I can't remember the exact line, but it was, but of course I have free will. My master gave it to me.
Yeah. Yes. I remember Christopher saying, of course I think I have free will. I have no choice. But
yes,
I think so. That was another one.
Yes.
Ed says, referring to Sam Harris's view, of the four horsemen of the new atheists, Sam Harris is the one I've listened to the least. I know a lot more Dan Dennett than I know Sam Harris. So if somebody would like to bring Sam Harris's view and tell me about it, I'd so love to listen. Sasha says, I don't think it's healthy to passively promote religions in our society. There is not limit to this unchecked power of religion. You would provide a path for all religions, including the harmful. Is this stating that it's bad for us to platform people? Is that what I'm getting?
Do we have a claim?
That might be a claim that we shouldn't platform. When I generalize that enough, it's sort of like I shouldn't platform people I disagree with. And then where would SE be? SE is all about, SE is fine if I'm talking to David or Reid and they mostly agree with me. We can go through the motions and it's not very profound. But when I speak across the aisle, when I speak to somebody who's completely opposed to me, and yet we can still have a good conversation, that's where the value of SE is. And if I start putting like exclusion lines against people, then how do I even have the conversation? So maybe for street epistemology, I need to have an exception to the no platforming rule. I don't know.
Yeah, it would still work. I firmly, maybe I'm about to make the claim, I firmly believe that we disagree with everyone on the planet about something.
Sure.
And so everything could be, and everything can be discussed. There's no limits. So that would mean, barring the YouTube algorithm, obviously.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say YouTube community guidelines cause some limits, and I will cut you right off.
Of course.
Doorknobhead makes the claim religious texts should come with warning labels. I saw somebody got completely lost their shit over somebody putting fiction on a Bible in a Costco. Would fiction be enough of a warning label, or what would be the better warning label? And who gets to choose? Because if any one religion gets to choose, all the others get the fiction label, right?
I'm by profession, I'm a football coach, and I was traveling around America, actually very close to where Doorknobhead is, actually. And we occasionally stay in sort of hotels, Motel 6s, and there's always a Bible, as there normally would be. And I was with another coach who supports it's not like a really top tier football team, but his local football team, and he had loads of stickers, and he was just like opening every Bible he could find and just sticking like Aldershot Town FC stickers on the inside of the books.
Is that
on a random page? It is a football club, yeah.
Okay. Thinbox was disagreeing with you that he could disagree with you in a serious meta disagreement.
Oh, okay.
And the joke got through just fine to me, but I am weird. Ed says Sam believes that through meditation you can become more mindful while being 100% determinist, which undermines his point of view in Ed's opinion, because the ability to become more mindful would also be determined, as well as even being exposed to the idea would be determined. So hard determinists, I think he says, don't have any choice about whether they will become more mindful or meditative. They just will or won't. I have a real
into his position enough. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a real problem with the idea of really hard determinism, because that takes the I in cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Well, wait, what if I'm not thinking? What if I'm just a playback device? What if I am just playing the movie of Dali that was written in a prior era, and I'm not affecting it at all? I'm just told in the script that I'm the one doing the thinking. Maybe I don't even have any memory of my own.
Yeah,
does that
like
remove the I? And hard determinism, I can't distinguish from I'm just watching a recording of what's supposed to be me thinking. Pat says, sorry, darling, but I just got on and I may have heard you incorrectly. Were you saying that you're under the belief that you have free will for small decisions, but not the larger ones? I don't think it's the small or the large ones that I'm making a distinction about. I think whatever I is indeed the one making the decisions. And there's this illusion that I'm making the decision in real time. Like I could look at a clock and say, I decided then to do it. So neuroscientists can say, yeah, but I can look at your brain scan and tell you 5 seconds before what you were going to decide. I think that's just the illusion that my brain actually works in a much more spread time frame, a much slower cycle rate than I perceive. I also don't think that I can ever make a decision that wasn't influenced by priors. So I can't have the kind of free will that makes some religions work. I don't know. Doorknob Head's movie needs a script rewrite. Okay, we'll work on that. And Dali is a conscious brain in a vat. I cannot.
I believe that is a claim.
Yeah, I cannot be sure that that is not true. That may be true, and that may not matter at all. If I am indeed a brain in a vat, or if I am a figment in the mind of God, or I'm in a server rack in the great simulation, I still only deal with the reality that I have, and I'm going to choose to treat it as if it's the real base ontology, the real thing that's out there, but constantly keep a lookout for any little, ripples in the matrix? Any little thing that would give me a clue as to what the real thing is behind there. But until I have that clue, I should not change my strategy away from treating it as it is, as if it is what appears, because any change of strategy away from there is just guessing until I have some information that goes further. Atheism cannot answer hard solipsism. They don't have 100% certainty like their religious brothers do. Agreed. Atheism cannot answer hard solipsism. I don't attempt to. I accept that hard solipsism might actually be the case. I also reject, personally, any claims of 100% certainty. My belief scale doesn't go up that high.
So just to clarify, because I'm still unsure about the differences between a solipsism and hard solipsism, whether there's a difference at all. So solipsism to me is the René Descartes, I think therefore I am, and only I can, I only know that I exist. Is that?
Yes. Hard solipsism says that there's only one viewpoint, and that's obviously me. That's obviously not you. You only think so, because you're a figment in my imagination.
And you're imagining that I think that.
Yeah.
You keep going.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if we talk to Bernardo Kastrup, we can talk about how it's obvious people can have split brain. What do you call it? Disassociation is the term. So your mind and my mind and Reid's mind and everybody in the audience's mind and Mitchell's mind are all really part of one mind that's disassociated from itself in order that it can see from all these multiple viewpoints and so on. That's Bernardo Kastrup's thing. And I think he's probably the leading proponent of that form of idealism that I've seen.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm reading up a philosophy book at the minute, and I'm still trying to go through a lot of the Greeks. So I'm trying to improve my knowledge on that philosophical side of things from both the sort of theistic and atheist sides of things.
I think Kerglow is saying the same thing. The best way to think about hard solipsism is that every conscious being is the same being. Basically, I am every being. Yes, that is the view of Bernardo Kastrup, if I understand him correctly. Sorry, Dr. Bernardo Kastrup. Must include the academic titles where appropriate. Gina asks, does anything change for you if you're a brain in a vat?
No.
What do you guys think? No? Reid?
Maybe it increases the probability of suicide.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah. Hello, Nathan. Good to see you. Welcome. You're obviously welcome, just like anybody else, to come on. Although I have to say, I'm a big fan of Nathan, so if he shows up, I would be even slightly happier. It would decrease my probability of suicide, although that probability is vanishingly low. Oh, Veronica was just spending some quality time in an emergency waiting room recently, and there was a gentleman who kept repeating emphatically, "He is me," in reference to his friend. He is me. Yeah, Pat asks, Reid, why would thinking that you are a brain in a vat change your potential for suicide?
Less genuine meaning. I think a lot of meaning comes from relationships to actual real people.
Okay.
And if it's just me in a vat, then that's what I care about is just not real in the way I thought it was real.
Okay. So the drivers that motivate you would become in some way fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So could I throw something else out there as well?
Please.
Quickly. So if I'm going to make up some words, is it a hard vatist position to believe that everybody else is also a brain in a vat? Or is it just you and everyone else has meaning?
Oh, I'm fine if everyone else is a brain in a vat. If we actually lived in the Matrix where there's actually other real people.
Yeah, that's where I went.
That are connected to the Matrix.
Yeah, I think relationships in the Matrix are genuine relationships.
Yeah, they're real. They're just in a simulation. They're simulated.
Yeah.
The reality is simulated, but their meaning, it's more real than solipsism. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I think my position. Oh, so go for Patricia.
No, go ahead.
Please.
You have something, and Patricia will wait. Patricia will be patient.
They're only agreeing with you anyway. So, I was going to throw out there that now I've forgotten. Unbelievable. It's going to come back to me immediately.
All right. 100% certainty exists, Dali, says Patricia. I hope I read that right. Yeah, I believe that some things certainly exist, but I don't believe that beliefs can be known to 100% certainty. But I would delight for you to give me examples and convince me otherwise. I will try to be convincible.
I've remembered my bit.
Oh, good.
Yeah, maybe you do respawn. Don't know.
Yeah, maybe. How would I know?
You'd have to test it. I'll know.
Yeah, but that might be the thing that I'm hidden from, because I didn't think that I had respawned before. So if respawning was normal, I should assume that respawning without knowledge of prior spawns was normal.
I don't like being a slave.
Right.
In that
That. Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Oh, sorry. I was going to throw something out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's at the forefront of my mind. I think, from what I understand, I realize I really need to learn more about the subject. I think I just take the opposite position. I think I take the opposite position to Reid. I think the term would be absurdist nihilism. Where I think it's Sisyphus pushing the rock up the mountain is the best way to describe absurdism. Mm-hmm. So the rock's going to roll down the hill. In the same way we know we're going to die, we know there's no meaning, but we embrace the absurdity of just pushing the rock up the hill for the sake of it. And so we just continue through life. That's just that's the driving force. That, I can, so I will.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Okay. Welcome, Nathan. Glad to have you.
Hello.
Oh, I can hear myself. Oh, I can't hear myself now. There we go.
Did you
How
fix
are you
that?
guys doing?
You
Yeah,
sound
I don't
good.
know what it was. I
That's
just
all
when I
it
said
was.
hello, I heard hello back, but I don't know what that was. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you and Doug still on that diet thing competition?
So sort of. I think we extended it by 6 months, but I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens, like maybe around Christmas time or something.
Wow.
There's no way he could ever win.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you guys have got to ask him, I think, about the all meat diet thing, because his blood pressure, right? We had a conversation like 3 weeks ago where I was like, I was saying, I'm not sure about that all meat diet, and Travis, who's really pro the all meat diet, was there kind of sort of doing the all meat diet apologetics, and Doug's like, yeah, it's going to be great. And then 2 weeks later, he goes to A&E for high blood pressure. I'm like, did you tell your doctor about that? Like the
What's
all meat
A&E?
thing? Accident and emergency. Like I don't know what you call
gotcha.
it in America, like the emergency room, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
because his
Or
blood pressure was like the highest that it can like.
They don't have healthcare in America. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
Well, this was after he was talking about how good privatized healthcare is as well. So I think he does like the fact that he could just go and drop 10K to have a doctor look at his blood pressure and give him a CT scan.
Mm-hmm.
Righto. Do you have a claim, Nathan? I know you've been talking a lot about Jonathan Pajot and Vervaeke and Peterson. What is like the main claim they're talking about these days?
Just getting them to. So here's how I suspect a conversation would go if you tried to say, what's your main claim? They would say something like, it's you're thinking propositionally with the left hemisphere of your brain. And we know from Ian McGilchrist's work that we need to use the right hemisphere of our brain equally. And so I'm trying not to think, this is what's happened ever since the Enlightenment, and now they'll get into like a historical story, right, about however, and this is why we have materialism and the meaning crisis and suicides, and so I try not to think propositionally.
Should I ask, like, what symbol is orientating your action today?
It might sound like I think it's the right sort of question, but it might sound kind of like sarcastic then. I'm trying to think how you could ask it. I'm just not sure.
This is good to know if SE people come across people who think like them and like non-propositionally they have like a way of knowing things non-propositionally.
Right. And I think they're sort of right that there are things that, there's a lot of non-propositional things that we know, right? Like how to ride a bike, but I can't necessarily describe to you how I like balance myself or whatever.
That are worth having a conversation about between.
But that's what I mean. But where they go with things like that then is they'll say, well, being in the liturgy or the Eucharist, it just provides me with, I just have this experiential knowledge, right, from participating in religion, which I can't articulate. But I'm going to have a YouTube channel where I spend hundreds of hours articulating what it all means. But I can't articulate to you, possibly, there is a bit of a whiff of tension, right, in the worldview there. Because a lot of these people, all they do all the time is go on Discord and talk about what it is that they believe, right, propositionally. So.
Mm-hmm. Through language. You're not just vibing.
Exactly. But as for how you get into that conversation, I think you could. You just have to be very kind of like gentle in the way you ask them, right? And I think you'd eventually get to a claim about, well, what is it you're participating in or something, right? And then they would communicate some belief that they have about what this participation stuff means, and you could explore that maybe. Because from their point of view, a lot of, a word like, well, you wouldn't actually use this word, which is why I think it's kind of funny. But if you're like right now, what we're doing while we're talking, they say this is communing, right? And that's an ordinary way of thinking about it. Like we're communing. So then they're like, so that's like communion, right? Which is what we do with God when we're in church. So it's, and they play like word association. Like
I know that epistemology. It's right because it rhymes.
Yeah, right. That's... yeah.
We like Nathan's YouTube presence. At least I certainly do. And so it goes for all of us. I will generalize.
Maybe you guys could help me out though, because I've been meaning for a long time to try and do SE videos, right? And I have miserably failed in that endeavor. Like, I've even I went to like a Christian convention, and I couldn't even figure out the right time to do it, because like when you're in the buildings that they're in and stuff, it just seems awkward if you start talking to someone to be like, oh, can I get a camera out now? And it seems kind of like violating the space or something to just set up a camera, like in a tent or something like that. And then I've not been sure whether you think that maybe like university campus or city center is like the best sort of place to start. Because I went on some sort of walking trails because I saw you guys do that in the US, but I think in the UK, because the culture's a bit different, people were just a bit like, what the hell's this guy doing standing on a walking trail with a camera asking to have a conversation? So yeah, I don't know if you guys, maybe you could help to understand, the best way to just get started doing SE, like in public, that is. Not.
Yeah, it might be a cultural thing. Anthony and Mark Solomon from Being Reasonable, like Anthony just flew out to where Mark lives, and they went to another Mind Body Expo where Mark, like I think last year, uploaded maybe a dozen or so more conversations from that conference or exposition or whatever. So, but that's like in America, so that's American culture, and people talk to Mark all the time there. Anthony was in Texas. I'm in Hollywood, Los Angeles. So public parks and universities work okay. But
and they see a camera, they come to you there, right?
I know. I'm like influencer central with Runyon Canyon. So it's like they see a camera, they just gravitate towards it.
The consent question is just like, boom, fast, done. Yes, of course. Move on.
Yeah, it's like assumed immediately. Everyone is on their phone or making content everywhere in that park.
How do you find university campuses in general? Do you think because people are younger, maybe they're like a better place to do it? Or?
Yeah, have you tried the university?
I've not tried there yet. No, so
that's probably your best bet then. Where would be a good place for that?
Glasgow University, where I go to university, is like there's a few. I could just stand outside the library or something, right? With the GoPro on and see. But
you're a student there as well?
Yeah, right.
Well, then great.
That gives you lots of street cred.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, if they're shouting at you from the roof, like they did for Bogosian's video the other day, then just that you're doing it right. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a SE Creators Zoom meeting that we do every 2 weeks or so, where we talk about all this.
Right.
I'll try to let you know next time.
I guess the students are mostly not from Glasgow though as well, so they're the accents and things probably won't be a problem. But I suspect that there's usually stands to do with like recruiting people into the Communist Party and stuff like that around, and it could be interesting to talk to people.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Chase would love that.
I think Nathan maybe didn't see Chase.
I only came just before when I said.
Yeah, and he was Saturday also.
Saturday.
He's a vegan activist. He's quite the proponent of veganism and does a pretty good job of presenting his thing. He does tend to lean into emotive and visually disturbing as means for persuasion.
Yes, he spoke quite a few absolutes, like he was saying everyone thinks X. It was like, yeah, how do you know, kind of thing. Oh, hold on.
The board's come out.
Have I paid for this?
Do you want to go to UCLA tomorrow, Dali?
Yes.
Cool. I want to practice another kind of spectrum SE variant.
Oh, spectrum. Oh my, yes, of course.
So we put like the tape on the ground, Likert scale. But I'm also going to try giving each side these things so they can write down their reasons. Like, say the disagree side has more red, they can write down the disagree reasons there. The agree side has more green. They write down their reasons, and then I take their reasons and I put it on this board behind me. It'll be in the middle, and I can kind of map out the argument as they talk.
That's pretty cool.
Spectrum is lovely if you have a crowd, because you can deal with anywhere from 1 to, well, maybe it's 2 is the minimum, I'm not sure, up to 6 or 7 people, and probably it won't get out of hand. It is way harder on the interviewer to remain neutral and to maintain that dance. So we're going to need the quality of Reid to make this work. Reid, who's been teaching Peter how to do it right, and Peter has been growing tremendously in this one. Yes, I'm speaking to the person who coined street epistemology and saying, yeah, he's getting okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
because I'm snotty and snarky and all those things.
What are the yellow ones? Are they like
that would be a claim.
Okay, right.
And if there's any words in the claim, we can use this white one to define words. And we can even like make the game about this word should mean this. Do you agree or disagree? Do the spectrum for that. That would be interesting.
Sure. Yes, I'm referring to Peter Boghossian. Yes, I'm. Hello, Nate. Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Going very well. Do you have advice for Nathan on how he should properly Nate with the Nates?
Yeah, actually, Nathan Ferguson are the reason why I'm Nate and not Nathan. And then it rhymes, of course. I got alliteration and rhyming in. There's a long tradition of alliteration in the SC community. Yeah, actually, Nathan, I just went out for the first time last week. And I just went to like public park. Now I'm in the US as well, so there is that cultural difference, but I'm in the Midwest, which is maybe a little more private than some of the other, like certainly than LA is. So there's a little bit of that hesitancy, but it was a challenge to like approach people and just be like, hey, do you want to talk to me about your deeply held beliefs? But I think the big thing is going out there and doing it. And I actually plan on going to the local university campus for my next time. And if you're a student there, that makes great sense to do that. So.
Yeah, I think I'll give that a go. How did you sort of approach people? So did you like write something on a board saying what you're doing? Because I think having a board that says street epistemology might be confusing as well, because people don't know what that is, presumably, and epistemology is like a big scary word. So I mean, do you have like a preferred method for getting people interested in what you're doing? Obviously, like having I think some of Reid's things, maybe the things drawn on the floor, whatever, it might be like, oh, what's going on, and people want to check it out, right?
Yeah, what I had was I did get like a whiteboard. I've got a few up there actually. I'm in my classroom right now. We have a back to school night thing. So, but I got like a whiteboard, maybe yay big. I can't, yay big. And I wrote, let me see. I wrote something like, do you have a few minutes for a short interview or something like that? Or you have a few minutes? I'm doing short interviews for YouTube. Right. And then I had like some sticky notes with like questions, maybe claims anyway. So I had one that said like, what do you believe? And, and then I had a bunch of I had like 6 or 7 different topics and little sticky notes kind of around it. Something I think I saw Reid and Dali doing out in one of the parks one time. And then it's just, I said like any topic. So, but when I actually went up and talked to people, I'm like, hey, do you have time for a short interview? And they were like, what about? And so I kind of explained what I was doing in general. And the people I like, the park wasn't very busy, so I didn't actually approach that many people, but the people I did, I mean, it felt awkward at first, but once I got that first interview, it was a lot more comfortable for me after I did that. I kind of like calmed my nerves. I'm like, okay, I can do this. It's okay. And so I wound up having like 4 interviews, and a couple of them were because people saw the sign and were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" You know. So having something visual, I think, can grab some people, even if you're not that comfortable just approaching them.
Lightning round. I would like each of us to answer this question if you're willing. Just one answer. What is one thing that would convince you that the God of Bible exists? I'm going to take the lowest hanging fruit. He shows up in the public square, talks to me and us directly where we can see him all.
I mean, Doug's 1 Kings 18 comes to mind, something along those lines.
Which is sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Not everybody knows Doug.
I have no idea.
Like an actual
Make it wet.
predictable miracle sort of thing. Yeah. So where somebody said, you set up the parameters, you can test it over and over again, and somebody can, pray in the name of a particular deity, and we can see the laws of physics break right in front of us, and we can many of us can witness at the same time. We can test each other. We can repeat it again. That sort of thing.
Good. Too long. Gotta be shorter.
Someone showing me that a resurrection was a better explanation of the New Testament author's beliefs than cognitive dissonance.
Good and short. Thank you.
Yeah, besides a time machine, going back in history and seeing an actual physical resurrected body of Jesus rising in the air.
Excellent.
Yeah, the consistent evidence of things happening that violate our current model of physics that is documented from a variety of sources, ideally repeatable.
Yep. So, David, we've taken all the easy ones, and Veronica just took the one you were thinking of. So you're going to have to give us a new one. Veronica says, shows up actual miracles and creates them.
I was going to say everything else. No, I was going to say if it could be proven that the laws of logic don't work.
Ooh, violations of the laws of logic. Fantastic.
Because that shatters everything.
Yep. Craig said to lower the epistemic standard, and you guys go all up. Yeah, my epistemic standard is up here for a God. No doubt about it.
Well, mine is just in the normal place. I've not made it any higher.
I think mine is exactly as I would expect for a God. And now Tom Jump is quoted here. Joshua Rich, God gives us gold bricks. Thank you, Otangelo, for that question.
Hey.
Yeah, back to the question. Oh, sorry. There's Otangelo. Never mind.
You can ask him.
Yeah, but nobody can meet that standard if you guys.
Your mic setting is not right.
You're on the wrong mic.
Fix it.
You're on the mic that's in the next room.
There's also quite a lot of background noise coming in from someone's mic as well.
That's Nate. That's Nate.
That's probably. Yeah.
You could mute when you're not talking.
Sure. I'm on my school computer, so.
Is my mic okay now?
Excuses. Yeah.
It's crackly. Say something.
Okay. Let me check here another setup. Just a minute. How about now?
I thought you were an audiophile, Otangelo.
He is. That's why he has too many options.
Is it better now?
No.
Distant. Yeah.
Now you're speaking from down the block.
Is it better now?
No.
No?
All room, no mic.
What now? Is it better now?
Crackly.
It's better, but crackly.
Unplug it and plug it back in.
It sounds like a lot of room.
So, what about now? Is it better now?
No.
Yeah, that's the last option.
Okay.
I have to restart my computer. How do we start my computer and see if it's going to be?
All right, come back in a minute. Thanks.
All right, yeah. Go away, come back. You're so welcome. Go ahead, everybody.
If I was feeling snarky, which I am, then I'd say,
Yes.
why don't you just pray that it gets fixed?
Yeah.
Maybe he is.
I-
Maybe he'll come
Yeah.
back with you.
Yeah.
He'll say, I prayed.
Well, I actually have a question I would like to get some of you guys' thoughts on. Recently in my comments in my new channel, my Daniel Ray has been asking me some questions. And he
I
had a
love
really good question that I really liked, and I thought I would get some people's thoughts on it. I have my answer for it, but I'm curious what you guys think about it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and copy and paste it just to make it easier for you guys to see it. But essentially what he's getting at is, let's say you shake the foundations of somebody's epistemology. What do you offer your interlocutor if you yourself aren't sure about your own epistemological assumptions, especially when it comes to who we are as human beings in the universe? So I think what Daniel's getting at here is like, if we shake somebody's epistemology, are we then offering them a different epistemology? And if we are, what are we offering them? And so I have my answer, but I'm curious what you guys think about that.
I am uncertain about my epistemology, and when I explore epistemology with you, I am asking for feedback. I want to be convincible. I am actively looking for additional epistemologies because mine are a little too restrictive. I've become an almost pyrrhic skeptic. It's very difficult for me to grab new beliefs. I don't assume that I know the answer. However, I do assume that us exploring epistemologies, we can together come to an understanding that some of them are bad and worthy of rejecting. Like the example, it's true because it rhymes. When we pull that out far enough and look at it together on most of the time, we will recognize that one's wrong. So some epistemologies we can reject. Other epistemologies we can conditionally accept. I don't have the right set. That's part of why I'm having these conversations.
Seems to me that there's a kind of assumption built into that question that there's one general answer, right? And I think that there's probably a number of different answers dependent on the particulars of that situation. So what the belief is that has been knocked out, how important it is to this person. Is this person like depressed, or do they have some kind of like, mental condition or something that like knocking out a belief in objective morality is actually, that's the thing that was in some way keeping them going. So like that I'm going to have a different answer in that case than someone who's not depressed and isn't, just keeping afloat or whatever by having a theistic belief or something. And then I've just found out that and questioned it. So there just isn't going to be a general answer for me. But I would agree that if I'm ever asking like SE style questions with someone, it's about exploring the consistency of their own beliefs. Right now, maybe afterwards they might want to ask me what I think about this, and I can try and like fairly describe the topics that they're asking me questions about and say, well, I think this, but some other people think this, and try to help them make up their own mind as best I can. But again, there's not going to be like a general rule about what I'm going to persuade them of or something, because I might not persuade them of anything. I might just go, look, here's like 5 options. I think this one, but
Yeah, I don't think I have a foundational epistemology, but I have a foundational set of attitudes, and the core of the attitudes is the willingness to be wrong, and just having that attitude. Hopefully, that will lead me to the best place eventually.
David, any thoughts?
Yeah, initially, I mean, I've been thinking about this idea just past sort of 24 hours or so. And it's because I'm relatively new within SE, it's sort of like expanding horizons kind of thing. I see, especially at the very start and some early SE that I've seen from, we're thinking chronologically here, it seems like it started with particularly the way Boghossian went after faith as a main reason. So that was atheist versus theist, and it was all about trying to lower the confidence of the very fundamentalist, arrogant theists that knew their claim but never questioned it. And so on a Dunning-Kruger, it would be the peak, and then we're just trying to nudge them down that cliff, down to that spot. But then, so this question is, once we're in that valley, what do we do to get them back up again to the right side of the graph? And that requires, just by the definition of the graph itself, you'd need very little knowledge to nudge them down into the valley, but then you'd need a lot of knowledge to then push them back up again on the other side. And I don't have that knowledge. So I think I am thinking of what is the process that we use to then, like, what is post SE, as it were, is part of SE also pushing them back up the hill, where we could say, name some sources where you could find out more knowledge on this subject. Why are they good sources? Blah, blah, blah.
I hope you don't mind my visual pun. Anytime somebody mentions Dunning-Kruger, I put them in the upper left.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really good question about, like, and then maybe a meta question to that would be, is that our responsibility to nudge them up the graph if we, get them down in the valley or whatever? My kind of initial gut reaction to that question was, I don't think I really necessarily want to offer them an epistemology. Kind of like what Dali said, I'm looking for better ones too. But I think that humility and curiosity, maybe it's more of an attitude kind of thing as opposed to an epistemology itself. Like, okay, I think David used something about, the arrogant fundamentalist, right? Dropping that arrogance down, opening up, people to ask questions and just be curious. And maybe they can climb their way up the graph themselves. But I'd be happy to help them if I can.
I think it is exactly that. Sorry. We're all too nice. I was only going to suggest that curiosity is the main thing. So because it's such a large body of knowledge, at some point we can, we have to lead the horse to water, but we can't make it drink. And they have to obtain that knowledge themselves in their own time, at their own speed. Because if we come forward with a body of knowledge, that's more likely that they're just going to put up the wall and they're going to fall back down the graph, because it's like, oh, well, we're now preaching to them. So instead we need to guide them, tutor them on their knowledge at most by saying, avoid certain pitfalls. Here's sound deductive arguments. Here's what a syllogism is. This is your claim. Here are some bad reasons. They're called fallacies, etc. But the majority is done by them.
So my view that, people don't have to share when it comes to meta philosophy is going to be, so a lot of the kind of beliefs that are being talked about, I think, in that question that Daniel Ray asked, are going to be people's philosophical beliefs, right, and commitments, I think, rather than other types of beliefs. And I think that a lot of philosophical questions just arise out of a kind of state of confusion, right? So just kind of being trapped in our language and asking strange questions about things like time, but based off of the fact that you can use time as a noun, right? So you can kind of refer to it like you refer to a spatial object. And, most nouns kind of have a substance that they're made of. So you'll ask a question like, well, what's time made of then? Or, like, where is it? And I think people are like this with truth as well. And a lot of philosophical discourse, in my view, is just kind of arises out of asking kind of muddled questions. And if you can show it, sometimes you can show people that the questions themselves are just kind of pseudo problems. And then when people realize that, the craving for an answer goes away, because you just realize there wasn't a question in the first place, right? And I think that's the case with a lot of philosophical disagreements, and that's why I think so little actually hinges off of which position you take on a lot of these philosophical debates, because whether you're a moral realist or an anti-realist, right, when it comes to meta-ethics, the actual discussion about whether any particular thing is right or wrong to do is just a completely separate debate, or what people should in fact do. It doesn't hinge on any meta-ethics. Whether you say it's right or wrong to drown babies, well, moral realists and anti-realists say, they engage in the same moral discourse in real life, and that it's like, our real ordinary lives are where things matter. And a lot of the philosophical discussions are just kind of when we've got a bit too much time on our hands and we ask ourselves confusing questions. So a paradigm example of this that I really like is, in grammar, you might say like a verb is active, for example. And then you might think, well, is to sleep, is it active or passive? Because obviously sleeping is a passive activity, right? But grammatically it's an active verb. So you're like, well, which, how should I go about classifying it? What's the definition? And these are the sort of, that's kind of what philosophy is like a lot of the time, I think.
Yeah, they play around in the margins in the ivory tower. And with street epistemology, we like to get concrete claims about real problems that matter to people and how we could figure out the best way to know whatever they're claiming or how to navigate the world. Yeah.
Exactly. And I like that about it because it makes you feel more comfortable doing it a little bit. I don't feel like I have to have a degree in philosophy to talk about these things because these are real beliefs that real normal people have. Sometimes we get caught up in all this technical jargon and it can be intimidating and makes people feel like they aren't welcome in the conversation. And that's kind of exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do.
I actually think that's by design in some of philosophy as well, but seriously, I think a lot of philosophers just want to have the conversation to feel like they're doing something important, and that's why a lot of the intimidating vocabulary and argument forms and things exist.
Yeah, when you use them, you're signaling not only the words, but you're saying, I'm the kind of person who knows these words and these concepts.
Right.
I'm guilty of that so much.
Yeah.
I also really like to be able to find the word for the thing that they're talking about to, I don't know if it's shortcut, but just skip. It's like, yes, I got you. I understand you. I can identify the word for the thing you're talking about. And that's a balance. Should I do that? Shouldn't I do that? Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it's like, is it an ego thing? Patricia has a lot of claims, and I like Patricia's claims. I want to examine Patricia's claims. So if you are willing to, not today because we're out of time, call in on another day or hit me up, jugglingLessons@gmail.com. I'm happy to have private one-on-one in this environment. There's lots of ways that we can explore your claims, and I want to. So if you're willing. Thank you, Patricia.
Travis had a good question for Nate, I think, if there's time. The one at 9:57. How do you deal with religion in the classroom if it ever comes up?
Yeah, I've handled it in a variety of different ways. It just depends on what we're talking about and what the context is. I actually run a club. I started running a club last year that's basically a street epistemology club at the high school. It's called Impossible Conversations Club. Our first meeting for this year is next week, which I'll probably be in the Discord asking questions about ideas you guys might have for the first meeting. I probably will do some stuff a little bit different this year than last year. But I am a science teacher. I teach biology, and part of our curriculum is evolution. So the way I've always handled that is I kind of address it head on before we get into the unit. And it's something that they've learned about before in middle school. But I just want to make sure that I kind of make sure we're focused on science and that's what we're doing. So what I've often done is I've often actually put up a picture of the Pope. And I ask a few questions to the class saying, hey, does anybody know who this is? It's the Pope, somebody says. I'm like, okay, and would you describe the Pope as a religious person? Yeah. Do you think the Pope believes in God? Yeah. And then I put up a quote from the Pope where he's basically saying, hey, I believe in evolution. And I just say, if you're religious, I'm not here to attack your beliefs. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. And you don't even have to believe the things we're learning, but we're just going to approach it like science, like we've done when we talked about what the mitochondria does, when we talked about mitosis and meiosis. We're gonna follow the evidence, and we teach them a model called claim evidence reasoning. Essentially, it's epistemology. And we're gonna look at the claims, we're gonna look at the evidence that supports those claims, and we're gonna look at the reasoning that describes why that evidence is in support of those claims. Now, occasionally I'll hear conversations, just day-to-day kids talk about stuff or whatever they did in church or whatever, and I just generally don't engage with those. It's not really my business. Sometimes with like the evolution unit, kids will ask me like, "Hey, Ms. Hartman, what do you believe?" Blah 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 blah. I'm like, we can talk about that after class. And I've had a few students come up and talk to me about it after class, but I say, that's not really my place. That's not my job. If you want to talk about those things, I'm willing to, but not right now when I have a captive audience. So that's how I handle it. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. That captive audience, prayer, not prayer, religion, not religion. Ooh, that's a thing this week. It is 2 hours. Thank you all. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, David. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Reid. Thank you, Nate. We were scheduled to have Nathan Ferguson, SE with Otangelo, but we have run out of time.